first, it's fun to talk about what was the most hated. I just want to talk about that right now.
Always.
So,
But the most hated
ev-
thing is weird.
yeah, the number one from the data I got, it was Pokemon Sword and Shield. It was a video from Nintendo's like Treehouse showcase for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and everything. It's very unassuming. You it's a pretty lengthy video showing you how it is. But if you get into it, some 20 odd minutes into it, they make this big revelation about how you're not going to be able to import every Pokemon you may have saved into the Pokemon Bank system into the new game. So I've been out of the Pokemon game, out of the Pokemon scene since Generation
In
2.
my opinion, I'm perfectly fine
Uh,
with that because it's like
the way that I
you
would play a
should.
Pokemon game, start from scratch. No,
Yeah.
that's yeah. If I was gonna, I wouldn't have a choice. If I got a Switch and I got Sword or Shield, I would have to start from scratch. But I guess people that have been paying for that, yearly service of the Pokemon Bank, they're upset because not everything is going to be compatible. So that's
Do you
where
really
all
want to
the
start a Pokemon game with like a level 100 Pokemon or whatever? Anyway, like that seems broken as shit.
I
oh
mean, but
no
people really like when things are broken. They're like, I just want to win.
Now, here's something that I remember from the first two generations of Pokemon that you could do, and there was something that prevented you from being able to totally cheese it like that. If you were going to have someone else's Pokemon, because that's the way it would be like if you were to
Yeah,
go
yeah, the
from
badges
yes,
and
the badges. That was it. Zach totally knew what I was going for.
yeah,
But here it's like you're paying for the service, you're paying $5 a year. And yeah, it sounds like if you have a Pokemon that's really high leveled, you could just bring it into the next Pokemon game. And people, ever since like the games came out on 3DS, I guess people have been doing that. And it's bizarre whenever I every couple of years I see how many total Pokemon have been released, and it's like there's
it's
like
a lot.
over 800. So I don't know how many are going to be in Sword and Shield. If it's going to be like, yeah, I mean, I could say I would think like 300 is a lot, but man, it's like that's
There's
like
upwards of like 1,000 some now, I believe.
God, where I read it
Everything's a
said,
Pokemon.
uh, well, when I look at God, I remember even Gen 2, some of the what the fuck was that Pokemon? It was kind of like a missing number. It was kind of like a black squiggle, like hieroglyph symbol. What the hell was that
That was
Pokemon?
from
But
Gen 1. That was missing no.
okay, yeah, I know that was from Gen 1, but I just remember in Gen 2, I remember there was like some Pokemon that it was like it almost looked like a some hieroglyphic character. It was like a black
Oh,
ink,
the unknown.
the unknown. Yeah.
They were an alphabet.
And it's like were each one of those like individually like
A letter.
a,
Yes.
so they were all different if you had a Pokedex, they would all be different
No,
numbers
it
and
was all under one entry, the unknown, but there's 26 types of unknown or whatever.
Huh.
yeah, it's
One
some
for each
old
letter of
stuff.
the alphabet plus punctuation, I believe.
I
Oh
just gotta
God.
say, once you got into like Gen 2, I get really fuzzy about what Pokemon were in Gen 2 and anything after that. And it's like I just remember starting to see like just the way that some of the new Pokemon look. It was like, God, the people that created these, they had like just totally different artistic styles compared to like Generation 1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they cleaned it up more because they could have more pixels on the screen too. So that was also a major reason why the
But it seemed
designs
like
changed quite a
a
bit.
lot of the Pokemon that I remember, I just remember at one point I was just noticing what's with all these like straight lines for on the Pokemon? They
Like
didn't
very
really
geometrical.
Yeah, they didn't look like animals. They looked
Yeah,
like shapes.
I like the cute animals.
When the Pokemon started looking like shapes instead of animals, I was feeling a little critical of what's going on here.
Anyway, we're continue on
Yeah.
with
Okay, so other ones that were hate. Okay, so that was the number one most hated one, and it was pretty much
the reason
people.
why is silly in my opinion, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the number one most hated, and then after that, you had Commander Keen, gameplay
that
footage
was pretty
of
bad.
on a cell phone. So you actually see footage of the game being played on a cell phone, and people it's pretty decisive that games that have come from PC or console, when if they make a jump to mobile, it's going to be flamed, and the implications that that could bring. And like another one that's really hated is like Elder Scrolls Blades coming to Switch. Um, yeah, Bethesda was a
Free to
big
play
loser.
game on the Switch.
Yeah, yeah, free to play game on the Switch, and it's the implications of that is like other mobile trash could come to Switch if that's successful. So it's like people just don't want that.
I think the only reason it's coming to the Switch though is because it's made by a big developer. It's not like they're going to let like Candy Crush come onto the Switch or something like that, you know.
We'll
But who
rewind
knows?
this
They might
when that
be.
happens.
They might.
You know,
But
Yeah.
it's
Candy
like,
Crush is like has been pre-installed in like Windows like
yeah,
before, and
that's stupid.
maybe even in Windows 10 it's like pre-installed.
Well, King, the people who make Candy Crush, is owned by Activision now. So I mean, eh, anything's possible.
Yeah, so anything really with Bethesda, any game by Bethesda, just everyone hates it. Fallout 76 getting a battle royale, and
Mhm.
NPCs. People are getting sick of battle royales. So that's those are really the big losers. It's like Bethesda. Oh yeah, okay. Another one to mention maybe is Shenmue. People hate games getting taken away from Steam. Games that were supposed to come to Steam, they got snatched up by the Epic Games, because Shenmue 3 is supposed to, that was people that backed that on Kickstarter or whatever, like they wanted a Steam key, and now they're going to have to play it on Epic Games. And I don't think they can get a refund, so it's like people want to choose not to support Epic Games, and they're kind of being forced to. It's kind of like a bait and switch. So that's another one. But and as far as ones that were really liked, just Cyberpunk and Avengers. And the thing is, there are some mixed feelings about, people don't like the new character models in this new Avengers game. But that being said, it got a lot of
Mhm.
clicks, and they didn't downvote it to hell or anything. I mean, I think people are interested in the Avengers game. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting that you bring up the Avengers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We definitely are going to talk about that. But just to say, Microsoft won pretty big. Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is like
Yeah,
game of the year. Show game best in show. Everyone. It's all about Keanu. Biggest
Dude,
celebrity.
Kiana is blowing
Big. Biggest celebrity tie I've ever seen for a video game. The just overwhelmingly positive response from everybody.
you're breathtaking.
You're a breathtaking. That's what he said. You're a breathtaking.
He
so
actually
funny.
said,
Yeah, he said it like that, man. You're a
well, he
breathtaking.
said you're breathtaking. Then he said you're all breathtaking.
Dude, the way I heard it, I think he said you're a breathtaking. Just my goofy ears, maybe. Okay, we got something to say about Marvel, the Avengers game.
Yeah. So this is going to be by far Crystal Dynamics' largest game they've ever made. Um, it's actually being developed by 5 different studios. So there's 5 studios working on the Marvel's Avengers game. the main one obviously is Crystal Dynamics, but they've opened a new studio in Bellevue called Crystal Northwest, and they're also getting help from partners in the Netherlands, Nix's, which has a big team of people who they've worked with for 20 years. Eidos Montreal is the sister studio that worked with them through the Tomb Raider trilogy. And then there's also Square Enix Japan that is working with them. Their tech group is working with them. So there's 5 different studios working on this Avengers game.
That's pretty dope. All over too.
Now, I wonder if they're collaborating in like the same parts of the game, or if they're just imagine this game being broken up into like different expansions. Like, I'm just wondering if it's like level by level, they're all collaborating like on the same areas, or when they
Possible.
go, or when they go into a different area, maybe that whole next area unreleased. Like, there's going to be shit that's like going to be released later. That's going to be done with like a different groups of people than the initial stuff. It's like I'm trying to wonder, like, is this could this be too many chefs to the soup, or this doesn't sound normal, right? Or
More and more AAA companies are bringing in other companies, well, either other developing studios or branched studios. Because I remember that Red Dead Redemption 2 was a collaboration between all of the Rockstar studios, which I believe there are either 3 or 4 of them.
they've like worked together for years and years, right? And so is this kind of normal then? Would you
It's
say?
gotten more normal than it originally was. Like, for
Mhm.
instance, you mentioned Cyberpunk. That's being developed technically by CD Projekt Red and like 3 or 4 other companies as well. So, like,
All right.
big game projects are getting more and more like they're spreading out some of the weight. You know.
Guess they have to. Any anything else about Avengers?
Yes, the main campaign will be single player only. We found out. Now,
Hmm.
so the main story campaign will be single player only. However, there are side missions that take place between the story missions. Those are the multiplayer component in the game, where
Okay.
you team up with some buddies and go
So you
through these
figure
side missions together.
there's probably a lot of cutscenes in the single player sections that that could complicate things if it was like in multiplayer.
Probably.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, or they just wanted to tell a single player story. Have you like? I don't know. Sometimes single player is more like it can be used as a training mode for multiplayer stuff. I don't know how this is going to work out exactly, but it is just worth noting that main story is single player only, while the multiplayer component will be all the side missions and side jobs and stuff. Which they actually did say that the side things are called missions. If I had to guess, it might be something like wave survival. I'm not sure what they're going to do for the missions. It's probably going to be objective based with wave survival stuff, because that seems to be the popular thing to do for this type of stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
look at stuff like Destiny and
have you
and
played any of the
Division and stuff like that.
Ultimate Alliance games?
The Ultimate Alliance games are good. Those are more dungeon crawlery. There is an Ultimate Alliance 3 coming out for Switch, actually.
Isn't that exclusive to Switch too?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. I The only thing
But
I could really say about this Avengers game is they're having good PR. I mean, it's the PR Avengers is getting. It's kind of like the opposite of like what EA has been getting.
well, I mean, we saw Fallen Order. Looks good. I still think the graphic style is very
Well,
reminiscent of the
it's kind of
Clone Wars
it's
animated
kind of
series,
like
but
you need to like you can like section off Fallen Order, and then it's like everything else from EA.
true.
You know, that's what I mean.
Uh,
All the good buzz is for Fallen Order, which was, I believe, the third highest viewed E3 related video was Fallen Order related.
I believe so, yeah.
And
But
then,
like,
yeah, the whole FIFA, uh,
and they're
FIFA
rebranding loot boxes and stuff, and
their F,
they released a statement that says uh, that loot boxes are fun and enjoyable or whatever.
they're
Like,
ethical.
Everyone loves
yeah,
them.
ethical and fun. It's just like, what? Like, I want to smack your CEO.
Yeah. So we totally have him in protesting them.
Yeah, it's just stupid. That yeah, they're changing the names of loot boxes to make them seem less.
Surprise boxes.
Yeah, that they're calling them surprise boxes now.
Maybe
That
maybe
doesn't make it any
EA.
better.
No.
Wait, did EA? Did they? What company made Skate? Was that
EA,
them?
yeah.
Well, they could have fun boxes in the skate park, and they could just be like change what a fun box is in a skate game.
God.
Uh,
Uh, but yeah, so Avengers story is single player only. As the biggest game Crystal Dynamics has ever made, and which Shadow of the Tomb Raider, their latest game, was actually pretty large. There was a lot of stuff to do there. But yeah, so it's still worth looking forward to. It's not going to be as multiplayer focused as some people figured it was going to be, but in my opinion, that's fine. Let people enjoy the story and then dive into multiplayer or whatever, you know. Hidetaka Miyazaki has said that Elden Ring is an evolution of Dark Souls. For those of you who don't remember, Elden Ring is the new game by From Software, and is a collaboration between Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin.
Interesting.
Now, the trailer is very well. It's very much a teaser trailer for a From Software game. Yeah, you don't really have much of any idea of what's going on. But from what I kind of gathered, they're talking about like you see this guy hammering on a ring in space, very much like Hephaestus and stuff like that. The god of the forge from like Greek mythology. He's hammering along on a ring, and then the ring breaks, and it seems to me like that kind of represents the sun, because what he says, look up, and people look up and they start burning away and stuff like that. It's kind of like the sun exploded or something.
Uh-huh.
So, which I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like the Dark Souls games have always been about returning light to the land, or bringing about darkness by rejecting the light and stuff like that.
there's like cycles of light and darkness.
Thanks for the subscription, AP.
Thanks.
Right.
I really appreciate it.
We really do.
Look at the fancy emote.
Yeah, you know, uh, it's not all that clear in Dark Souls 2, but there are areas in Dark Souls 3 which are in Dark Souls 1. But there are areas in Dark Souls 2 that are kind of reminiscent of places that were in Dark Souls
Mm.
1. But there's this one guy you talk to in Dark Souls 2. It's by, I forget what it's called. It's this part in Dark Souls 2 where there's like poison everywhere, and it's the place is like equivalent to kind of like Zen's fortress, like in Dark Souls 1. Like there's booby traps,
You're talking about that
and
place where it's just like this wooden structure in this
and
black pit.
there's a windmill that you have to burn, and if you don't do that,
Oh no, I know what you're talking about.
there's a
Then
boss fight that's like
yeah,
super freaking hard if you don't burn a windmill.
when you burn the windmill, it turns off the
The poison and the
yeah.
boss room. Yeah. Well, there's this guy you speak to in there, and he tells you that time doesn't work the same way in in the settings of all the Dark Souls games. Like there are like people that can just exist for like eons almost, and kingdoms come and go, they fall, and other ones are built on top of the land of like the previous ones.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ones that like just exist perpetually. In some cases, like Anor Londo, like that could be like the oldest freaking place there is. And in Dark Souls 1 it doesn't look that decrepit, but by the time you get there in Dark Souls 3 it's like all frozen over there.
Yeah, but so basically, seeing this new franchise as a way to evolve Dark Souls combat and stuff like that. So like as it has evolved over the course of the last three games, technically he only
Similar to
did one and
Bloodborne.
three.
Yeah.
Miyazaki only developed Dark Souls 1 and 3 because he was developing Bloodborne during the time that Dark Souls 2 was being developed. So that is an interesting thing, and it's also rather interesting that like the last two From Software games were PlayStation exclusives, basically, not counting
Right.
Dark Souls 3, because as the last one in an entry of a franchise. But two newer franchises with Sekiro and Bloodborne were exclusive to the PlayStation, and now we're getting another multi-platform from Software. And I gotta say, I'm looking forward to it. Punishing difficulty and solid gameplay, you know.
Yep, if that's your thing, I'm sure it'll be great.
Okay, now
I mean, it's one thing for a game to just be punishing, but if the controls aren't that good, it's some games just get punishing just because of bad controls. But this is honestly like it's a they're
So well
good
thought
games.
out,
They
deliberate.
play fairly well for the most part.
Hmm.
Do you have a favorite Souls game in like the series? If okay, beginning with Demon Souls
Well, I
and
didn't
then
play
just
Demon's
on.
Souls, so I've played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. I've played Bloodborne. I haven't played Sekiro.
Isn't there like some other samurai one, like Neo? Is that the name of it? Isn't
Yeah,
that
but
like
that
a?
wasn't made by From. It was
It
made
was.
in it was funny thing is it's like we want to do like a From Software game, but we'll set it in a different setting. So they set it in Japan, and then the next From Software game's like, oh hey, that was a good idea. Let's set it in Japan too. And then they did Sekiro.
Yes. Uh, my favorite Souls game, and pretty much, I think if someone is going to say what their favorite Souls game, it's probably the one that they've played the most, or the one that they've you could say they've tamed the most, the best. Like it, if you know what I mean, taming a Souls game, because a lot of these Souls games,
You don't
it's
beat
about,
a Souls game. You just get better at it.
well, you if you gain enough knowledge, there are sometimes certain game mechanics that you can exploit. You know, finding like maybe overpowered weapons or just good balanced equipment setups and stuff like that. And easily, I've played Dark Souls 1 the most, the Prepare to Die edition on PC, and I've seen numerous videos where people say like, "Oh, Dark Souls 1 is like the hardest Souls game." And one of the ways that some people see like what is the hardest Souls game, it's maybe the first one you ever played.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Souls 1, I would not say is the hardest Souls game, but that's just because I've played it the most. And
Dark Souls
yeah,
1 is definitely the easier one, I would have to say. Compared to some of the stuff that they throw at you in 2 and 3.
some of the okay, Dark Souls 1, there's actually something that really made the game a lot simpler to me. And the thing is, you would have a totally different experience in Dark Souls 1 if you didn't know things like if you, if you play like these Souls games, they are tough to play blind. Like
Yeah,
they are. If you're like,
they are. They're yeah.
and
I'm aware of that. I
I
tried
will
doing a blind playthrough of Bloodborne, and I was like, I can't do this.
I straight up I like rage quit in a way. No. I just stopped playing Dark Souls after you lose to Seath the Scaleless, and it's like you have to die to Seath the Scaleless, and if you didn't have like the Ring of Sacrifice on, you like just lost everything effectively. And I probably just like I didn't play that game for like 3 5 months or maybe even more. I just like step away from this and do
Well,
something else.
you want to talk Dark Souls rage? AP can tell you something about that, because yeah, he tried playing it back in 2015 while we were doing our first run of the show, and he rage quit hard at the Asylum Demon.
Nah.
Well, that's like the first boss. Well, the trick with that boss is you don't fight it, you run away, and then you can like do like a plunge attack on it to initiate the next encounter. And oh, dude, there's
He did end up going back to it, but then he he perma rage quit after when he got to Ornstein and Smo.
well, the trick
Ornstein
is
and
with
Smo are the wall of Dark Souls.
here's the
That is
um,
where most people that's
and
where most people just stop playing because they can't get past it, and it's just
well,
such rage inducing.
with the gargoyles in Ornstein and I just call him Smog. What's the
There's
name of
literally
what's
like
the
10 different ways to say his name. Nobody
the
knows.
what is okay? The dragon from The Hobbit is named
Smaug.
Smaug. I almost want to call him that, but Smaug. Well,
Smaug, Smo.
well, okay. With the Belfry gargoyles in Ornstein Smaug, you can summon Sunbro.
Yeah.
Okay, you can get him to come with you, and
Or you can
he
bring
can be
another player along, but yeah, it's rage inducing to do that solo, especially if it's your first playthrough and you haven't gotten too used to the game yet.
also good strategy in Dark Souls 1 is put all your souls as much as you can not into really leveling up, but putting it into pyromancy, because pyromancy doesn't really scale with any attributes that you have, but everything you put into it, it just really builds up into like these powerful fire attacks that, like I said, they aren't scaling with intelligence or faith or anything like that. Pyromancy is like devastatingly powerful, and in the Ornstein fight in particular, because fire is very effective against pretty much every boss in that game. Even the ones that are like on fire, you can still hurt them with pyromancy. Like there's like a some kind of centipede boss somewhere in there and shit. And yeah, fire is like really good. Although if you're fighting Ornstein with a lightning weapon, potentially he has like huge lightning defense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird thing because one of the best weapons you can run through in that game, in my opinion, is a lightning halberd. But because it's mixed damage, partly physical and partly electric, if you encounter anything with like lightning defense, it's gonna suck.
Hmm. So,
But
going back to Elden Ring, Miyazaki has said that Elden Ring will go beyond simply bringing new twists to the formula. By adding larger and more open environments, he believes that the game will evolve on a larger scale. That reminds me of something that I heard not long after the reveal, in that Elden Ring is going to be an open world game. So that's going to be interesting if that, because yeah, it's the way he charts out the stuff. Like technically, all the Souls games are open world because they build on each other and interfold and intertwine with each other. Because they're all connected to each other.
you got the blood stains on the ground and the little ghostly.
Well, no, I'm talking about how like all the areas are connected to each other. Blight Town, Upper Undeadburg, Lower Undeadburg, and Orlando, and all these other type of they're all like interconnected, basically in the same world. It makes it feel like a world, as compared to just interconnected segments that you go through.
Right. But now just like a true open exploring world.
Which might be interesting because maybe there'll be options in how you go about the story, like because in Dark Souls, the first one anyway, is like it was fairly linear. It gave the illusion of go anywhere, do anything, but there was a certain order in which you had to do things. But the world opened up the more as you did things, so you could go back because everything eventually became connected in one way or the other, one way or another.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like there's going to be more options this way, and like you would have potentially more gameplay time because you wouldn't necessarily see everything in your first go for sure, and you could play it a totally different way the next time around.